Welcome to the Process to Ecom Profit podcast, where we know top-line sales just isn't enough to have the business of your dreams. Learn to run a profitable business online that doesn't run you.
Welcome to the Process to E-commerce Profits podcast. We are really excited to share about what we've learned, about what we do, and how we help businesses. I'm going to leave it to Cyndi to kind of tell you a little bit about what we're going to be talking about on this podcast.
Thank you, Robyn. Well, our mission for our podcast is to help e-commerce businesses build a profitable business, one that they run instead of the business running them.
And, we want to make sure that we start with a little bit about us so that we kind of have, we have a unique perspective on running e-commerce businesses. I started as a seller and then I coached a lot of high volume sellers. So not only have I actually physically held the inventory, now have I, I've actually had the cash flow issues. I've had to be frustrated with Amazon because, big portions of my inventory had been lost or moved or something along those lines. But we've also looked at a lot of different Amazon businesses across a lot of different sourcing methods. And that gives us a unique perspective to see what really works and what doesn't work. We've spent the last several years analyzing launch strategies and, what really looking at businesses that are profitable and businesses that are in trouble. And we've been able to identify, and we want to share with you some of the tips and some of the identifiers that we see that helps to make a successful, profitable e-commerce, one that you run instead of it running you. So how did you get started with this, an e-commerce accounting business?
Well, first of all, I was a stay-at-home mom, and I was looking for something to do to help supplement our income and to provide some flexibility so that I could be with my daughter in those years, because I was a stay-at-home mom, but I was also homeschooling. And so I needed something that was flexible. I needed something that provided a little income to help me pay for my daughter's tutoring. And the idea of working remotely really appealed to me. In my corporate job, I had many years of accounting experience, had installed accounting systems a couple of times as our corporate business grew. And so accounting kind of came naturally to me. And I was consulting with a friend of mine in her business, and really she needed to move her accounting online as well. So about that time, QuickBooks Online was coming out into the forefront as being a application that you could use remotely. And so from that perspective, I built this remote accounting business to allow me to be home, take care of my family's needs, and also serve clients. One of the things that I learned pretty early on was that my clients were struggling with cash flow and with profitability. And about that same time, I happened to meet Mike Michalowicz and heard him speak on Profit First as he was introducing that book, the first self-published version back in 2014. And I knew it could help my clients. So I joined forces with Profit First, become one of the first Profit First professionals. And through my interactions with Mike, went through some coaching with him to learn about how to develop a niche to grow our businesses. And so I had a few e-commerce clients, and from working with Mike and working with those e-commerce clients, I knew it was a good fit. And so I focused down on being able to serve those clients effectively since about 2015.
We have had mutual clients and that we've shared where we both have had access to those things. And you've come to speak at several of my retreats where we've looked, we've had high volume sellers come. As you looked at so many different types of Amazon businesses and e-commerce businesses, what has been the thing that has surprised you the most?
Well, I think, coming from a more traditional corporate type background, I just assumed everybody understood the ins and outs of businesses and of business and how it worked. And what I realized is that people were coming into Amazon as a side hustle, and that for our clients, they got it right. They figured out how to sell and how to make money selling on Amazon, but they didn't really understand how to create the systems, put the processes in place to really grow it as a business instead of growing it as a side hustle and being scrappy every day. And there's a certain great feeling to all of that as you're getting started, but it can't last forever, and people burn out on it. And I hear people say, I just don't know what I'm going to do. I can't get away to take a vacation. This thing is running my life. And so one of the things that we like to do is help people get in a situation where they're back in charge and they get the help they need. They put the systems in place so that the business is really operating in a sustainable way, not totally dependent on the owner burning the midnight oil all the time.
And I've seen, you working with businesses that have been able to do that, have been able to kind of get them from a place where they were completely crushed by but by their payments and their loan debt, and get them into a healthy place. And I think you've even had some of those businesses ultimately be able to exit, right?
Yes, we have. I mean, it's uh, first of all, you do need to figure out how to get profitable. But as you get profitable, then you can use that money to start to put in place the systems and the order in the structure of things so that you can get out of the day to day and start really working on designing your business. And what we find is that clients that focus on those things really can grow and scale more quickly, and they're in a better position and look more attractive to a buyer when it comes time to exit. And this past year, it's been exciting to see some of our long-term clients make some really good money on these businesses that they've built over the years, and just really see the payoff for what they've been working hard for.
What other ways have you have like your small business experience made it so you're really able to help your clients?
Well, first of all, profit first. That was a starting point for me. It's been tremendously helpful in my business. I see the impact that it has with our clients' business. When the pandemic started and there was so much uncertainty and Amazon was shutting down what they would accept, I was getting emails from clients who were on Profit First saying, "Thank you so much. We've got cash in the bank and we're going to be fine. And we're so glad that we have this reserve built up." The other email I was getting was, "We don't know what the heck we're going to do. Can you help us figure out how we're going to make payments?" And so I like the first emails better. So Profit First is kind of a foundational thing. You have to have good finances and good books and good understanding of what your books are telling you, but you also have to have a good system for managing your cash flow too. And so the idea of getting cash management and profits in place first really sets you up then to work on systems. I'm a big fan of Mike Michalowicz's book that followed Profit First, called Clockwork, which is about designing a business that supports the seller so that they can actually put some order in their business and focus on those design things that are going to be better strategically suited to helping that business grow and helping the owner feel fulfilled by what they're doing instead of completely drained at the end of the day.
And I know that neither of us want this podcast to be an advertisement necessarily for our business, but what we really want to do is we want to be able to reach more people and help get that result. What is the thing that you see that's missing the most when you are talking to new potential clients that's kind of missing in their businesses?
I think understanding the finances. They've worked really hard to understand how to get how to sell and that changes all the time. So it's never something that you set it and forget it, but they're on top of those systems and are aware of their importance. But they don't really always understand how to look at the financial side of things and see what those numbers are telling them, so that they can start to look at things a little more downstream of what's coming and how to get prepared for that. But I'd like to get to know more about how you got into the place of becoming a seller and the journey for where you are now, Robyn. So let's talk a little bit about how you started as a seller and what motivated you to do that.
Well, it's completely unpredictable that I'm an owner of an agency now because, over 11 years ago or 12 years, it all kind of is a blur. A long time ago in a land far, far away, not actually, but I actually was a youth minister and we couldn't make ends meet. And my son was sick and we just had to do something. So I took $100 out of our emergency fund. We started buying things on eBay and then Amazon. We started to grow that business. In just a few short years, we built that $10 million business. Then we started coaching other high volume sellers, kind of like you. We started to say, okay, here's what we've learned. And here's, things that, we needed to understand about cash flow and, the way that we manage inventory and even listing optimization. And we went from kind of buying things in stores to buying things wholesale as a seller. We realized then that Amazon was a huge issue for brand owners, for manufacturers. It was just a very big pain point. It was a frustrating place to have their goods sold, whether they liked it there or not. And so we started about 5 or 6 years ago. We started our agency, kind of one client, then a couple, and then we've kind of built it since then. And now I get to work with these amazing companies. Some of them are like Shark Tank size, that they have their product, they have some sales and they're working on scaling. And then we have some companies that are as big as publicly traded, where the amount of increased revenue that we were able to get them was able to bring in additional rounds of investment. So it's really fun. I know that what I do helps people hire more people, make sure that they have get to see their kids, and actually can be present with their kids, because they're not, while they're playing Settlers of Catan, they're not thinking about how am I going to make that next Amazon payment. So I love what I do, and I've had the chance to speak at Harvard for Women's Entrepreneurship Day, which was a huge honor. And I was there for that, and then I write on a regular basis for Search Engine Journal. And I'm an SEM Rush Academy professor, which doesn't mean much in the Amazon space, but if you are from the Google space, you'll know that there are a very well respected software service that helps people with optimization. So I've got to speak at really amazing conferences and do really great things. But the thing that I love most is helping people, especially now that I'm working with brand owners, is having those businesses be profitable, having them be able to expand their reach. And when I'm working with resellers, making it so that they can have the business that they started this whole thing to begin with.
Yeah, that's the thing. When people start a business, it's to achieve something, and it's usually they didn't have in mind staying up all night trying to figure out how to solve the next crisis. And so it's nice to be able to help people get to that place of peace of mind. You've talked about being in business for 10 or 11 years, and that is a long time by small business standards. But in the Amazon world, that's like a really long time, because I mean, I've been working in the Amazon space since 2015, and I can see just the dramatic change that has happened in that time span. And COVID changed everything just here in the last couple of years. So what have you seen? What are some of the big changes that you've seen over the time you started as a reseller?
Amazon is almost completely different. I mean, the fundamentals are the same. There's a listing page, you're trying to have your product be seen by more people. FBA has been around for a very long time, but, things like safety and compliance weren't an issue when I started. There were not as many brands that actually cared about Amazon when I started. So the type of business that does well on Amazon has changed dramatically. And part of that is because the platform continues to mature. So, when I started, everything was the wild, wild west. People were, repackaging food in ways that were really illegal. And, like there was all sorts of craziness that was happening on the platform. But now Amazon's been taking a lot of that more seriously. So it does take more strategic thinking, more like you do have to actually have a more well thought out plan. And especially with COVID and the supply chain issues, a lot of margins were shrunk in the last year. So what we see is the people that are doing well, the people who've been doing well this whole time, they're willing to kind of continue to kind of keep their eye on the horizon and change their business and adapt to that marketplace change. Because what worked 5 or 6 years ago doesn't work today. And that's why it can be hard for people who are trying to figure out Amazon going off of YouTube videos, because if that YouTube video was made 4 years ago, maybe everything in it is inaccurate or could actually get you in trouble now. So it's hard to tell what the right advice is for Amazon. But what we have seen is just, it's not just a cash grab anymore. You do have to have this well thought out strategy. You need to have good marketing fundamentals, which honestly you did not need to have 7 years ago. It was just a cash grab. And so, it's not harder and it's not easier. It's just different.
Mhm.
And the obstacles that you face are different. When I first started, there was no calculator to tell you whether an item was profitable. We were kind of guessing on some things. We're like, oh, well, I'm selling it for 3 times. That item must be profitable. And, now we've got all these tools that can tell us all of this data on these products. But there are more issues when it comes to dealing with Amazon customer service and seller support that maybe we didn't have. So it's just an evolving place. And so you have to be prepared to have some patience and know that people at Amazon are way too busy to have an agenda against you. So it's just looking at how can you make it work and coming with like a solution oriented mindset, as my daughter's elementary school was trying to teach her.
Yeah, that's a good life skill for sure. Yeah. What other skills do you see that people need to have to be an Amazon seller in today's climate?
Well, first you need to have an understanding of the fundamentals of marketing. Now, if you're just reselling Nike shoes or Lego, then this isn't going to be as important because, to be honest, those brands are doing the heavy lifting for you. They've already developed the fan base, they've already developed the community, they've already developed the buzz. But especially if you're developing your own products or you're working on launching products that maybe are not as well known on Amazon, understanding the basics of marketing, understanding, what is a customer avatar, or what is a funnel? How do we move people through? What is, the indoctrination sequence that we want to kind of bring people through off Amazon to help people become aware of our products? And then, if you're running any kind of ads, then we really need somebody on your team that's good at analytics, somebody who can look at the ads and say, this is working, this is not working, somebody that comes with if then mindset. Doesn't have to be the same person. And in fact, usually the person that's good at marketing is not going to be good at analytics. So you can hire this piece out. That same analytics person is usually going to be your check person, the person that's going to say, let's make sure that we're checking voice of the customer on a weekly basis. Let's make sure that we're doing these things to ensure that the account is healthy. We're dealing with anything that comes up in that account health before it becomes a problem. Then the biggest thing and the thing that takes people out of business the most, I think, is cash flow and profitability, especially when margins get tight. I see people take lower and lower margins because they're still trying to grow. And what can happen then is that you're continuing to squeeze, and we've actually you've seen this too. They do grow their top line, but they're
Mhm,
actually making less money than they did when they were selling $300,000 less.
mhm, mhm.
So, it is really about making sure that you're really thinking those things through as you're developing your business. And then now more than ever, you really do need to have some sort of understanding or hiring out somebody who has an understanding of logistics. That means getting the products to you, especially if you're importing. But, now there are times where you need to be thinking a little bit in a more advanced strategy about how you're getting your products to Amazon. Should you be using small parcel? Should you be using LTL, or should you be using FTL? We had a client that over Christmas, their new it was a supply chain nightmare. They wanted to have their new product launch in May. It didn't arrive until November 30th. And so, in order to get it live for Christmas, we really did need to utilize FTL in order to get it checked in quickly. Luckily, they were near a vendor that we have connected people with that allows them to kind of get access to that kind of shipping. So we really do need to think about how you're getting your products to an Amazon. When is it right to FBA? When is it not right? And all of those things put together. But really keeping an eye first and foremost on profitability. And there are times where maybe you might take a hit on profitability, but there needs to be a path to sustainable profitability. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to do all of these things that you're really doing in the business.
Yeah, that's the thing we see over and over is people get attached maybe to an original product that's not profitable
Mhm.
anymore, but it really sucks cash out of the business just to keep that product on the in stock. And And by doing that, they're taking cash away from things that really are up and coming and are making money, and just that whole portfolio analysis of what's making money for you now, it changes over time. So it's the kind of thing you have to look at over and over. Well, Robyn, I'm really excited that we're kicking this off. We both have talked shop for years as we've talked at conferences and with joint clients. And so it's really exciting to look at this podcast as a way that we can give back some practical skills and knowledge to people so that they can run a successful business. And when you start that business, you start off with a dream, and very quickly it turns into overwhelm. And so I know you share the same goal as I do, that we want people to achieve the dream and to build a business that provides them the cash, that provides them the time and space in their life that they can actually be present with families and do the other fun things like hobbies and sports, etc. So that's our mission for the podcast. And we're super excited to come to you and share these tips.
And, we're really looking forward to helping. If you're struggling, then we want to help give you some tips. We've seen that we're at one time, sometimes making one adjustment or just adding one best practice. Maybe it's even just as simple as doing a weekly cash flow projection that can really make the difference between life and death, not to be overly dramatic for your business, or being able to not fire or lay somebody off. And we know that right now businesses are being pinched more than ever. And so this really felt like a good time to do this. So we hope that you'll enjoy the podcast. If there's something you'd really like to hear us talk about, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us, both of us. All of that information will be available in the show notes. But we want to be here to help the e-commerce businesses have everything that they need to be successful. So that's it for today's show. We are looking forward to many more episodes, and we hope that you have a fabulous day. Thanks for listening to the Process to E-commerce Profits podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Process to Ecom Profits podcast. Make sure you subscribe to get updates for new episodes. Leave a review, and one lucky winner each month will win a 1-hour call with your choice of our hosts, a value of over $300. Keep listening to hear the winner announced on the first show of the month. You can contact our hosts by using the Contact Us form at processtoecomprofits.com. You can also find the contact information of our hosts and show guests in the show notes for each episode.